Okay, let's unpack this. You know that split second of hesitation you have now when you get an unexpected message?
Hmm.
That email that sounds just like your boss, but feels, I don't know, a tiny bit off.
Yeah, or that phone call. A familiar voice, but asking for something weird.
Exactly. It feels like that sense of trust we used to have, online and on the phone is getting, well, a little shaky these days.
Absolutely. It really is
Yeah.
becoming increasingly difficult to be certain about, well, the authenticity of these digital interactions.
Right.
The very technology that lets us connect so easily, it's also making it easier to deceive.
And that's really the crux of what we're diving into today. We saw this really thought-provoking discussion over on Reddit, Our Futurology.
Oh, yeah? What was the gist?
Someone posed the question, with deepfakes getting so convincing, are we looking at a major shift, like away from online communication, a fundamental erosion of trust?
Wow. That's a huge question.
Hmm.
And a vital one, given how fast this tech is moving.
It really is. So to really get to grips with this, we've pulled together a few different sources. Okay. Got that Reddit thread, obviously. But also insights from consensus on blockchain for digital identity,
Interesting.
work from the Wilson Center on zero-knowledge proofs,
EKPs, yeah. Powerful stuff.
an article looking at vulnerabilities in voice biometrics,
Always a concern.
and some reports just on the growth of deepfake phishing and kind of infiltrating work calls and things.
Okay, quite a mix. So what's the mission here?
Right, so our mission for this deep dive is to really explore the potential impact. Deepfakes, how we identify each other, how we communicate online. We'll look at the threats, for sure, but also dig into some of these potential solutions people are proposing.
Sounds good. Where do we start? Just how good are these fakes getting?
Let's start there, because the Reddit conversation really hit on this key point. Just the sheer ease now of creating convincing deepfakes, audio, video, even images.
Yeah, it's not just theoretical anymore, is it? It has a
Yeah.
very real implication.
Exactly. And like the Reddit users pointed out, this goes way beyond someone maybe tricking their way into a job interview, right?
Oh, definitely.
What happens when these fakes start to erode trust in, professions where you absolutely need to be sure? Imagine questioning the voice or even the video of your doctor, your financial advisor.
That's a pretty fundamental breakdown of trust right there.
It is. And the speed is just incredible. There's research, I think, from MIT and
Yeah.
Google. It suggests that just like 1 minute of someone's voice recording,
It's just 1 minute.
yeah, can be enough to generate persuasive human quality audio. Think about that.
Wow, 1 minute. That's
Yeah.
that's not a lot of data needed. It really highlights how fast this is moving.
And we're already seeing it in scams, right?
Yeah.
The Reddit thread mentioned a Blacktail Studio video showed a near perfect AI fake used in a fraud.
Right, this isn't just lab stuff anymore. It's out in the wild.
Precisely. And we're seeing this rise in what people are calling vishing voice phishing.
Phishing, yeah, using cloned voices.
Scammers using cloned voices to target people, often trying to get into financial accounts.
And what's unsettling is how hard they are to spot now. Our instincts, relying on our eyes and ears, they're becoming less reliable against these fakes.
And it's not just isolated cases. The tech is getting more accessible. Even the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, put out warnings.
About what specifically?
Scammers using voice clones of like grandchildren
Oh, no.
to call grandparents asking for bail money for some made-up emergency. It's really manipulative, playing on emotions like that.
It is. And it just shows how adaptable these scams are becoming.
Yeah. And as the IT department at the University of Florida pointed out, it's not just phone calls either.
Right, Alice?
Deepfake phishing is showing up on everyday platforms, WhatsApp, even video calls like Zoom, real-time deepfake video,
Real time. So you could be on a video call.
and not even realize the person you're seeing isn't who they claim to be.
That feels like,
Yeah,
potential deception everywhere.
it does. But one interesting point from the Reddit thread was, a lot of scammers, they don't even need deepfakes.
Right. Good old-fashioned social engineering still works.
Exactly. Just playing on someone's fear or urgency, or maybe they're just not thinking critically in the moment. That's often enough.
That's a very valid point. A huge number of scams rely on that emotional response, that panic. But we also need to acknowledge the more sophisticated threats,
Yeah.
especially targeting businesses.
Ah, okay. How so?
These attackers, they often do their homework. Research corporate structures, key people. They use publicly available info to craft really believable impersonations.
So even without a perfect deepfake, the targeted approach makes it effective.
Very effective.
Yeah.
And the potential payout is much bigger when you target a business. So maybe they don't always use deepfakes, but that targeted social engineering can be devastating.
Okay, so it's like a spectrum. Broad, simpler scams at one end,
Uh-huh.
and these highly targeted, potentially deepfake-assisted attacks at the other.
Exactly.
Right. So let's think about how this impacts something huge in modern life: remote work. The initial reaction on Reddit was pretty stark. Could deepfakes actually force everyone back to the office?
That was definitely a major concern raised, especially around verifying identity in, say, virtual job interviews
Yeah, I saw that. People spotting ChatGPT reflections in glasses.
or weird off-screen eye movements. It
Yeah.
really highlights the challenge. How do you ensure the integrity of remote hiring? How do you know it's really them doing their own work?
Right. And companies are already trying to adapt. Some are saying, no smart glasses allowed in live
It's
interviews.
like a constant cat and mouse game.
It is. But then the Reddit discussion also brought up a really strong counter argument against a full return to the office.
Which makes sense. I mean, many companies operate globally now, right? Multiple offices.
Exactly. For just routine meetings, getting everyone physically in one room, it's often just not practical or cheap.
Tools like Teams and Slack, they're fundamental now.
Totally. And then there's the very human side. One user shared this really personal story. Developed a health condition, HIMSAS, makes being in a standard office physically impossible. Sensitivities to everyday things like alcohol odors from hand sanitizer.
Wow. That really drives home that a blanket, everyone back to the office solution just isn't feasible or fair.
Not at all. And as that user pointed out, even if everyone was in the office,
Right.
deepfakes could still be used on phone calls, targeting, say, client managers or advisors. The vulnerability isn't just visual or virtual.
That's a critical point. The phone is still a major channel and potentially vulnerable to sophisticated audio fakes.
Yeah. And that user also mentioned, sometimes work from home services can feel less responsive. It paints a really complex picture, doesn't it? All these challenges.
It really does.
So if we can't always trust what we see or hear, what defenses do we have? The Reddit thread started talking about authentication.
Yes, authentication is absolutely critical. That basic principle, something you have and something you know.
Like getting a text code to your phone, which you have,
Right.
and entering your password, which you know.
That's the standard starting point. Two-factor authentication or 2FA.
We're all pretty used to that now. But the discussion went further, didn't it? Talking about authenticator apps, maybe, or even shared physical passwords for really secure stuff.
More robust methods.
I know.
And things like PGP keys for email authentication, providing cryptographic proof of the sender.
Right. But there's a catch, isn't there? Someone pointed out that even the best encryption doesn't help if the endpoint is compromised.
That's the crux of it. If the device you're communicating with is infected or untrusted, the best authentication in the world might not save the interaction itself.
Like encrypting a file, once it's decrypted on the other end, you lose control.
Exactly. If their machine has malware, the decrypted info is exposed.
Okay, important distinction. But the idea also came up that even with, say, bad video quality on a call, authentication can still work to verify identity if the authentication method itself is secure.
Yes. And that led to talk about physical, offline authenticators, things not connected to the internet.
Like those little USB keys or dongles.
Exactly. A physical token generating a time-sensitive code completely isolated from online networks that dramatically cuts down the risk of remote attacks.
Makes sense. But as they also admitted, nothing's perfect.
Never is. Weak practices, short PNs, reused passwords, they still leave big holes.
So traditional authentication helps,
Yeah.
but it's not a silver bullet against really sophisticated impersonation like deepfakes.
Probably not on its own, no. Which is why people are looking at newer technologies.
Right, like blockchain and decentralized identity. Let's get into that.
Okay, yeah, this is where things get potentially transformative. Blockchain offers a fundamentally different way to manage and secure digital identities.
How so? What's wrong with current systems?
Well, for starters, they're often fragmented, siloed. Plus, centralized databases are huge targets for hackers, making them insecure.
And they leave people out, right? Consensus mentioned, what, over 1 billion people globally without official ID?
Over 1.1 billion, yeah. It highlights massive issues of inaccessibility and exclusion in our current systems. Blockchain can help address that, along with the data insecurity and the risk of fraudulent identities.
So how does it work, this decentralized identity idea?
Okay, so imagine decentralized digital identities, or DIDs. often built on blockchains like Ethereum. Each person gets a unique DID linked to cryptographic keys, a private one you keep secret and a public one you can share.
So the private key is like your unique digital signature, proving it's really you.
Exactly. It secures your DID, gives you control. And what's really neat is you can have multiple DIDs for different parts of your life work, social, personal finance, which makes tracking you across platforms much harder. Better privacy.
Okay, and what about proving things, like your age or qualifications?
That's where attestations come in. Think of them as verifiable digital credentials issued by other trusted DIDs. Maybe the DMV issues a digital driver's license, or a university issues a digital diploma.
And these are cryptographically signed, so they can't be faked.
Pretty much impossible to forge, yes. And crucially, you hold these credentials in your own digital wallet, not some central company.
You control your own data.
You do. So when you need to prove something, you might show a QR code linked to your DID. The verifier checks your control of the private key and the validity of the credential cryptographically.
This sounds like self-sovereign identity, right? SSI, where we own and control our own identity data.
That's the core idea. A huge shift. You're independent of central authorities like big tech companies or governments for managing your basic identity.
That seems really powerful. Does it open up other possibilities?
Definitely. Things like data monetization, maybe you get paid if you choose to share certain data. Portability, easily move your verified credentials between services without redoing everything.
Wow. So the benefits are decentralized keys, decentralized storage, more user control?
Fundamentally, more user control and manageability, yes. Think about your professional certifications not locked into LinkedIn, but portable, verifiable anywhere using your DID. That changes things.
Okay, this sounds much more robust, more private. But is there anything that takes privacy even further? You mentioned zero-knowledge proofs earlier from the Wilson Center work.
Ah, yes, ZKPs. It sounds futuristic, but it's very real cryptographic magic.
Magic. Okay, explain.
Well, zero-knowledge proofs let you prove a statement is true without revealing any of the underlying information that makes it true.
Wait, prove something without showing the proof. How?
It's about proving that you know something, not revealing what you know. Imagine proving you know a password without actually typing the password.
Okay, still tricky. You mentioned an analogy. Where's Waldo?
Right. Imagine you found Waldo on a crowded page. You want to prove it to me, but not show me where he is.
Okay.
You could take a giant piece of cardboard, cut a tiny Waldo-sized hole in it, place it over the page so only Waldo shows through the hole.
Ah, so I see you found him, but I have no idea where on the page he is.
Exactly. You've proven, without revealing the location. That's the essence of a ZKP. Proving knowledge without disclosing sensitive details.
Okay, that makes it click. So how does this apply digitally against deepfakes for identity?
The applications are huge. For decentralized identity, ZKPs allow robust verification while keeping data private. Like proving you're over 21 to buy alcohol online without revealing your actual birthday.
Oh,
Or proving citizenship for a service without showing your passport number. You just prove the necessary fact. Yes, I am over 21. Or yes, I am a citizen without exposing the raw data.
That sounds incredibly valuable, especially with all the data breaches we hear about.
Absolutely. The Wilson Center pointed to things like the Cambridge Analytica scandal or the Equifax breach.
How could ZKPs have helped there?
Well, with Cambridge Analytica, maybe Facebook could have confirmed users met advertiser criteria using ZKPs without ever sharing the user's actual identities or personal details.
Okay.
For Equifax, maybe services could verify creditworthiness without needing to access or store things like social security numbers directly. ZKPs reduce the need to hold so much sensitive data, shrinking the target for hackers.
And it's not just identity, right? Wilson Center mentioned potential for AI trust voting systems.
Exactly. Imagine AI proving it's working correctly without revealing its secret sauce, its algorithm, or private training data.
Yeah.
Or voting systems where votes are verifiable, but voters remain anonymous.
The possibilities seem vast. Private financial transactions, too. Supply chains.
Yes, private transactions on public blockchains, authenticating goods in a supply chain without revealing sensitive supplier info. It's all potential ground for ZKPs, and things like ZK rollups on Ethereum are making this tech more scalable and practical.
This all sounds incredibly promising, a more secure, private digital world, but how do we actually make this happen? Get everyone using it, trusting it. That brings us to trust frameworks, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. Trust frameworks are the organizational and governance layer. Think of them as multilateral agreements. They set the common rules, policies, technical standards for these federated identity systems.
So instead of every website having its own little identity system,
Which is inefficient and complex.
trust frameworks create a shared ecosystem where different players agree on the rules and can trust each other's credentials.
That's the goal. Moving from messy bilateral agreements to streamlined multilateral ones, you have key players, users, relying parties, the services needing proof, credential service providers who issue identities, and federation administrators overseeing it all.
And what makes up one of these frameworks? What are the components?
NIST outlines about 4 main areas. You've got the system rules, how things work operationally, like registration, identity proofing standards, security requirements.
Okay.
Then the legal structure, the agreements, who's liable if something goes wrong, how disputes are handled.
Makes sense. Legal stuff is crucial.
Then establishing conformance, how participants prove they meet the framework's rules. Maybe self-assessment, maybe third-party audits.
Right. Verifying compliance.
And finally, recognizing conformance, how you signal you're compliant. Think registries of trusted providers or compliance marks, like a seal of approval.
So it's really comprehensive. Technical, legal, operational, governance, all wrapped up to build that ecosystem of trust.
Exactly. It's the foundation needed for different organizations to confidently accept digital identities issued by others within that federation. It aims for better security, privacy, and convenience for you, the user.
Okay. So bringing this all together, it sounds like, yes, deepfakes are a serious, growing threat to online trust.
Undeniably.
But we're not necessarily doomed to abandon digital life and go back to purely physical interactions.
Probably not a full retreat, no.
Instead, we've got these powerful technologies emerging: blockchain, decentralized IDs, ZKPs, offering a path towards maybe a more secure and private digital future.
A potential path, yes. And trust frameworks provide the structure to make it viable on a large scale.
So the concerns from Reddit are valid, the urgency is real, but the story might be more about adaptation and innovation through tech and procedure rather than just giving up on digital trust.
That seems like the more likely trajectory based on what we're seeing develop.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. As these sophisticated technologies evolve and weave into our lives, what new social norms, what new expectations around digital identity and verification might emerge? How will we as a society keep balancing that need for security and privacy with our desire for just easy, seamless online experiences?
That's the multi-trillion-dollar question, isn't it? How we navigate that balance will really shape our digital future.